Alright, so Sorare finally released their big announcement. I'm just going to touch on each point that Nicholas said and, give my feedback on it, whether I think it was a win, whether I think it was a loss, and yeah. So first up, we had better communication and listening to feedback from the fans. Obviously, this is a big win. That's all people want at the end of the day. All of my complaints, it just comes down to that. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We were promised this before, We were promised, right now we've been promised a monthly newsletter. Before that, we had quarterly AMAs, which weren't here, and bi-weekly newsletters, which weren't here. Hopefully they've set more realistic deadlines and they can actually reach these, but, we'll call that somewhere in the middle because it's a good promise, but we need to see them, come through and deliver on it. So next up, we had calendars for the rules and the rewards of basically cards that are coming up throughout the months. This sounds like a pretty boring thing if you don't know what Sorare is, but for any Sorare fan, this is a huge win. Knowing exactly, what's going to be rewarded in each division, what division's open, what the rulings are going to be in each of them, it can really help managers plan what they're going to do, and it just makes the fantasy experience more interesting, You're not just dealing with a problem when it comes, you can plan months ahead and try and profit off it. So yeah, great win Sorare, keep that up. So the threshold grinders were absolutely loving it, thresholds are staying, and then they got the shock of their lifetime that common cards will be removed as well. So, it basically puts a barrier to entry for that league much, much higher. Goalkeepers are anywhere from £500 to £1,000. So, not your common everyday player can use them. And, how does this make me feel overall? It's really tough to say because on the one side, you had the positives, which are, they're paying out less. There was this system where you could earn your money back in about 6 weeks. You could take it out. You could do what you want with it. It's not really sustainable as a business. It left them open to multi-accounting and people trying to manipulate the rules. But then in the other side, when you are trying to come in and compete on a medium budget or a low budget, this was your best opportunity to see that league and see the limited league and see which one you had more interest in. Yeah, my big problem really is that going forward, what are budget users going to do? And this is something I voiced in Discord because I was like, I know the limited division's open, but look at some of the teams I'm putting out and trying to compete with me on a lower budget. It will be seriously difficult. I would have given it about a month before people realised they don't stand too much of a chance. And Dan from Sorare actually replied and said he thinks the new leagues are going to come in and actually be really beneficial to them. So yeah, I think that's actually an interesting thought. We'll have to see whether that comes to fruition because small budget users competing against all of the best limited teams, it's going to be really tough. But threshold sticking around with rares, simplifying the division. The rare division is for rare cards now. There's not, a free card which can go in there. Yeah, mixed emotions, positives and negatives. So I touched on the next one there, which is weekly tournaments, right? There is 3 new game modes, and this is the biggest win we have seen yet. I mean, I'll touch on exactly each division later, but new game modes which spice up, gameplay, keep you more interacted with it. The big problem with Sorare that I kind of seen recently is when I was in my kind of position of, right, these are my teams and I just set them and go, I could keep repeating the same teams every week, or maybe I took 5 minutes to decide, but it doesn't keep me interacted. It was boring, or if the money side was taken away, I'd be gone in a second. But if you make game modes that are interesting, just for like a fantasy football element, I think it's a massive win, and I'll touch on each individual division at the end of this video. Next up, we had a weird one. Unexpected, I'll say, not weird. The Mls Partnership. So they've actually got an official, deal with the MLS now, not the Players Association. So what this means is you can have the player badges on the players, where they play, a little bit more about that. So yeah, it's a positive, but it's a small positive for me. Maybe a few big MLS fans will absolutely love it, think it's nuts, but I think for most Sorare players, it's about being able to mint the cards, They would have preferred a league not that we haven't got onboarded as, a big announcement, but, better than nothing, I guess. And when we touch on the next point, when we're talking about unexpected changes, this was the most unexpected for me. I don't know why they've done it, but they've changed the game lobby, and there's not too much I can say about it because I haven't seen the new game lobby, but I do know they changed it about 2 months ago, and, at the time, new change, you never know what's really going to happen. Now I like the game lobby, and then they're going to change it again. It's probably one of those things you shouldn't get too hung up on, but don't know why you'd waste time on that personally. Next up, the most predictable point there was the new season cards are coming out for America and Asia, and we got to saw the design. Obviously, the design aspect of it is kind of intrinsic to you, what you thought of it. I really like the new designs, but there was one thing I didn't really like, where they added these kind of 5 types of designs. It's only very minimal changes, but there's basically 5 types of designs for collectability of these cards, but realistically, there's still not much collectability about them. You can barely tell they've changed, and, they're not going to stand out to anything. It's just going to confuse new people where it's like, oh, what's the difference between these? Oh, nothing, they just look different. You know, I like the consistent, these are blue cards, these are yellow cards, do what you want with them. Yeah, we'll see how it affects things, but yeah, bit of a loss for me, really. Finally, we had the mobile app. So yeah, you know, ultimately it would be a big win, but I kind of think it is overdue. It's one of those things, as a big business, you really should have the option. And the big negative for me is it doesn't do anything that the Sorare data app doesn't. You know, there's no benefit for me getting the app. I didn't see, you know, I'll test it out, of course, I'll get it like I'm sure most people would, but you know, it's for those new joiners that when you're like, oh, do you want to play Sorare? It's this new fantasy football game, you can earn money off it, all the rest of it, and they're like, oh, does it have an app? And you're like, nope, and they're like, not going to try it. Then it's like, yeah, it solves those out, but ultimately, but it's probably, you know, a negative for me, but a win for those new users. So that's where I leave it at that. So overall, yeah, mixed emotions. What I didn't like about them is they did hype it up as this next big thing coming. You know, if I didn't know better, if I wasn't in the Discords every day, I would have thought the Premier League was coming with some of these announcements, giving us a week to build it up. But on the flip side, how professional they've done it. You know, it's a big step for something we haven't seen before. This really good production that's coming together cleanly, no mistakes, no audio problems. I really liked it. It got me excited, you know, even things which I didn't care about at the time. I was really buzzing. I was like, yes, the MLS is great, everything's happening. It gave me that feel-good feeling. So big shout out to Sorare, and ultimately just communicating better. You know, that's the one thing I was asking for, and this is it. You know, we got a 15-20 minute video on communications, what's happening, a roadmap, calendars, all the rest of it. And yeah, I've said my part on each of the individual bits, but please keep this up, Sorare. Thanks for a little bit of excitement in life, and yeah, I'm now back on the Sorare hype train. Alright, so I have the new leagues that everyone's absolutely buzzing for here to spice up the Sorare gameplay. First up, we have the Underlogged League. It's similar to what we've seen with special weeklies before, where it's kind of low average players, but they've moved from the last 5 average to the last 15 average. You know, a big win really. The last 5 were just players coming back from injuries. Normally your absolute like monsters like Haaland and Fatty, you know, consistent injury guys coming back. It's just not great. It wasn't really interesting. So the last 15 spices it up a little bit. Still leaves you some good players, which is nice. And the key for me was that they plan to do one every single week, every single game week, in fact, with different scarcities. So that's interesting. Brings utility to lower value cards. Big win for me. Looking at it, I think it's last 40 this week, and it's pretty tough to get a team out. So like I said, they're just going to be adjusting the best they can, roll with the punches here. So we need to give feedback where we can. So yeah, let's see how that goes. So the next one up is the Specialist League, and I am so excited for that. It's probably the one I'm most excited for. And again, they're looking to have one every single game week, so this is going to be huge. What it is, it's basically a limited number of players will be allowed from the same club, so it stops that stacking element. I spoke about it before, but ultimately, right, let's just try something different in a different league, see if it works, see if it doesn't work. If it doesn't, we stop it. It's exactly what they've done. I absolutely love it. Card bonuses and captaincies won't be available. Again, you know, something I absolutely love. We're trying something different. There's no captain now. Does it make teams boring? Does it, you know, take away the big selection of the captain? Does it, you know, narrow down headaches and all the rest of it? Really excited to see how that happens. Probably favours me. I feel like I can never pick my captains right. And then also we have this, you know, how you build your team. So it's a maximum of 2 players with over 65 last averages. Oh, I think it changes, yeah. So there's maximum 2 players above last 65 and a maximum 2 players above last 60, depending on which one it is. And then it also varied the less than last 15 average of 40 and 45. Probably butchered that, but it basically explains it here. So even in the Specialist League, it's not going to be the same every week. There's going to be different parameters to work to there. I've already made my team for this week, and yeah, it was a load of fun. The only thing, it was kind of annoying to see what their last 15 was. I wasn't sure if I was looking at a last 5 or last 15 average. So a little bit easier on how to make the teams would be great, but just the fun of setting different teams, and you've got to think about it. You might have to go out and buy a player, and you have no real idea on who you're competing with and what teams they're able to put out. Fantastic idea, Sorare. Please keep doing things like this. The Rare Division update I've spoke about before, but I think one thing I forgot in the initial video was that all of these changes are in August. And again, it's just such a big win from Sorare. We want changes, but you know, it has such a big financial burden and big financial effect on everyone. You don't want it to come into effect immediately. Give people time to adjust, you know, so it dampens a blow if it's negative news. And even if it's good news, you know, you have anticipation for that in August, this player is going to be the best ever. So yeah, more of that. Do this for the Matrix, do this for next season, the rules and all the rest of it. keep this tradition up. Then we have the Legends Challenge. I've waited so long for this. I've not got a load of Legends cards, but it left such a bad taste in my mouth when Sorare started selling these cards. They're like, oh, you're going to have utility, you know, every month. And then like 5 months go past and we haven't had any. It's one of those, you're not really sure how to interpret it. Glass half full, glass half empty at this stage where it's finally out there. I'm going to take the positive route and just say, we will have finally Legends utility. And they've done it right. You know, it's not 5 Legends, it's not 1 Legends cards that are, you know, 1 Legends would be boring, 5 everyone would have the same teams. It's between 1 and 3. I think it says it's somewhere down here. But ultimately, it's going to leave creative squad building where it's like, okay, so you have 3 Legend spots. You know, can you afford them? If you can, where do you put them? Do you want them in gold? Do you want them up front? Do you have them in your extra position? It's going to be great thinking, and ultimately you could just go with the player you like the most. I mean, that's half it, isn't it? That's collecting the players you like, and these Legends are what really connects with football fans, because, you know, I know if I had some of my favourite Legends on there, they would get selected every week regardless of the team. So really excited for the Legends to finally have utility. Also, with these new tournaments coming out, just look at the prize pools. They are absolutely ridiculous. So in the Special Limited League, so using limited cards, you can win star rares. You can win over £10,000 worth of cards in one card. If you get an Mbappe, if you get a Haaland, that's just mind-blowing to me. Everyone's going to be putting their best teams out on this, or at least I think they should be. It's going to be so much fun to strategize different teams. And then even at the under 40s, right, when they say they want to bring new users in, they're not just looking at, you know, absolutely, you know, nobody cards. There's star limited cards in there. So, you know, each of these divisions you actually have, like, it's the most impactful thing. You should probably set in these teams first. I absolutely love it. You know, a touch of caution as always from, you know, my thinking is that I really hope they thought about this long term in terms of the economics, or, you know, cardonomics. That was awful. But yeah, I hope it's sustainable, because if there was a cut, you know, it would be really dampening on, you know, how would you say it, like confidence in the platforms. The last thing I did just want to touch on now is, you know, that progressing element we've been looking for. Is it worse or better given this update? I think it's probably a little bit worse. If you look at someone like me, I'm not able to, you know, test the waters with a common, you know, player in the rare division anymore. I would really have to go out, probably spend a couple of £1,000 to progress now. Is that beneficial? I would like to limit Pro League in between, whatever that means of it. From a personal element, I don't think there's a better update for me, because it requires having lots of limited cards, you know, low scoring cards, or lots of rare cards for the higher scarcities. But yeah, for me, like I said, being a limited whale, having all these limited cards, it favours me so beneficially. So if there was a bit of, you know, bias in this update, that would be where it came from my side. I don't have a rare goalkeeper, which I think would have been the cherry on top. But, you know, am I going to go out and get a rare goalkeeper now? Probably not. I'll probably sell my rare players and just stick in the limited league, because, you know, there's lots of good prizes to be won. It's more fun, and I think I already have that kind of advantage with the XP and all the rest of it. So yeah. So if you did like my update on this, please give it a comment, please give it a like. All the support really helps me. And yeah, if you think you want to come back and listen to any more of my videos, please subscribe. I'll be putting out a wide variety of content, and all the best to you.